Hello, dear friends. Having problems with authority would be the most normal thing in the world, because every human being is sovereign by birthright, if he or she doesn't violate universal law. Opinion piece. Crisis of autocracy. End of dictatorships. They are all based on ego. It is an unsustainable regime. It is not anchored in love. The reign of evil is over. The day of dictators is over. Rise of humankind's rights. Nero and Caligula will not return. Control of others never brings joy. Abuse of power is not the divine plan. Let's start. In quotes. National sovereignty resides in the Spanish people, from which the powers of the state emanate, says the Spanish Constitution. The problem is that the people is increasingly distrustful of corrupt intermediaries and wants to exercise its sovereignty directly because it is the master of its destiny. The parliamentary democratic system is in crisis, but much more so is the autocratic system, called dictatorship in vulgar language. A dictatorship is a political regime which, by force or violence, concentrates all power in one person or in one group or organization, and suppresses human rights and individual freedoms. There is no need to name names, because everyone knows them. This is what is in crisis today, fortunately for humankind. Autocracy is a form of government in which the will of a single person is the supreme law. An autocrat is a person who alone exercises supreme authority in a state. A dictator is a person who abuses his authority or treats others harshly, or who arrogates or receives all political powers and, relying on force, exercises them without legal limitation or separation of powers. Sound familiar? Failure foretold. The day of the dictators is over, according to Steve Biko. What is it about the use of force to make a population adhere to the will of a dictator that causes them to ultimately fail, or him? The Company of Heaven discusses the issue. Let us start by looking at the fact that evil constructs and other false networks do not have the means to last. Sanat Kumara explains, in quotes, "You can see momentary creations, and I am not saying they can't be absolutely horrible, and that's on a spectrum, but they don't last and they don't create not only sustainability, but what we would call construction. They don't build upon themselves. They don't gain legs, so to speak, when you build on the false grid, which has been so ingrained in the humankind condition for so long. That is why you see these creations, whether they be economic systems or war machines, that cannot stand on their own because they are not anchored in the full of the universe or in the essence of you. They are not anchored in love, and they certainly do not come with an aura of joy. A dictator in singular feels in a moment of joy drunk with power, but in truth it is simply an abuse of power, and that is not divine, but it is the lowest frequency to which a human being can descend. And when that kind of creation takes place, it degrades not only the individual, but the social collective. It lowers the collective frequency, and that is why that kind of creation fades, because it is not sustainable. Distortion of love. The war machines failed because none of them are built on a foundation that is sustainable. Heaven tells us that even the most grotesque and horrible acts of hatred based on cruelty, anger and fear would ultimately be hopeless deviations from love. There is no apparent action that is not a desperate gesture to return to love. This is very difficult to understand. There have been many instances in history where such aberrations have taken place. But when one acts in such a way, it is a pathetic and desperate plea of love. Regarding duck behavior, Jesus explains that the ego is a part of you that appears to be split separate and functioning with its own fear-filled, self-centered agenda, thinking it can destroy the opposition and rule the world. Most human beings discover their limitations during childhood and learn to negotiate with other egos, to form alliances, alleviating the terror of separation or loneliness. But a few will not negotiate or compromise and are quickly defeated or rise to become dictators of one kind or another, as their egos take total control of them, as in the case of some political, business or religious leaders, and live by sowing seeds of mistrust and betrayal, while trying to attain positions of power that they believe will make them invincible. Of course, they cannot succeed, but they often convince others that security can only be achieved by occupying positions of authority backed by force of arms. The dark one's willingness to control others simply leads to collapse. Divine Matter tells us, it is the ultimate tantrum, it is the destruction of illusion and the exposure of many fronts of what is hatred, greed and abuse. For even for those who are acting as actors in this dark path of development, it is painful for a being to seek power for himself or power over another, whether it be a father over a son, a husband over his wife, or vice versa, or a man over an army. The yearning for the exercise of control never brings joy. The pain simply grows, and so the actions become more grotesque, bigger, until the breakdown occurs. All positions where control and abuse of power have been rampant will never be the platform from which the integration of diverse galaxies will take place, for that is not the divine plan. Predictable outcome. Mike Kinsey opines that the light will always be victorious over the dark ones. Even now, they are being removed and placed where they can no longer cause great harm. The war between the light and the dark for control of the earth is destined to end soon. The outcome has always been predictable, even if the dark ones seem to be in ascendancy momentarily. Matthew Ward believes that the day of dictators is over, and so is the day of supporting those autocrats for selfish reasons. The day of exploitation of natural resources without regard for environmental destruction is over, as is the day of the wealth in the hands of the few. All that is based on darkness is rapidly coming to an end. So, darkness and the rise of bad behavior are not in the divine plan and will not be the basis upon which your new space and your new species, the universal human being, will be created. The darkness will quickly come to an end. The day of war is over. It is taking time for the dark forces to recognize that and to relinquish their control over the planet's systems, but it is unavoidable. And finally, it will not be possible to take the planet with them. There will be no nuclear Armageddon, and the cycle of evil on planet Earth will end. Opinions. Behind the sound of silence, the drum is rising like the heartbeat of a people saying, enough is enough. There is a common thread in the events in China, Russia, Yugoslavia, Peru, Brazil, etc., involving the extraction of mineral resources according to Benjamin Fulford. Cosmic Breakthrough by Judith Castle. We are in the midst of enormous superquantum changes, and the old Earth is in the process of disintegration. It is wise to go deep within and remain in unity with your own divine soul. Shifting by Caroline Oceano Ryan. At this time, you are traveling through a field of light that is unprecedented for both your galaxy and your planet, and so be aware that certain changes are occurring that you may not be expecting. For one thing, time will seem to move much slower and much faster on some days than you have experienced before. Breaking Down the Old Paradigm by James McConnell. Everything that is happening right now is about the end of the old and the beginning of the new. All you need to do is continue to be who you are in each moment. Trust the plan because the plan is working. And know that everything that is happening right now is about breaking down the old paradigm. Living in the Now by Cryon. It is time to let go of the idea of a past life, or at least what you thought were the energies of a past life experience. When you become interdimensional, there is no more linear time, and time and distance are irrelevant. Your current life has attributes of all that ever was, and the potential of all that you can ever be. Sense of oneness. People who experience a sense of oneness, the idea that everything in the world is connected and interdependent, appear to have greater satisfaction with life than those who do not, regardless of whether or not they belong to a religion, according to research published by the American Psychological Association. Soul through John Salman. Release or let go any doubt and anxiety, resentment, anger or fear, for they are all egoic and unreal states of mind. The humankind has chosen to awaken. However, many of you still feel very insecure because you have identified so powerfully with your physical body. In days to come. Puffness said, "You can all be assured that every cry and every pain has been heard. The pain and the waiting for the news has been seen in your service. You are all ready for good to unfold and to help the angry, the despised and the forgotten. You are all part of the one humankind spirit, and the goal is to increase, and prosperity is the goal of your species. So be it." The days ahead will be filled with changes unlike what most of you ever thought would happen. The efforts of the wicked are hard at work to distract and destroy any attempt to overthrow you. From this point onwards, the cracks we observe begin to creep upwards and will come larger with a little nudge. That will lead to discoveries that may cause a possible major isolation to occur for a moment. Nevertheless, humankind's effort continues to work to do the will of its belligerent and harsh masters. Better news will be shared a little later, but not yet. You will need to pay attention, stay away from vengeance and toxicity. Plan your sights and stay out of harm's way. A clear mind and an objective point of view is essential. Be part of the solution, not part of the problem. We can say that the time is becoming clearer. Things will begin to unfold, and timing is everything. We are not a planet that is about to be destroyed. We are a planet that has learnt its lessons. Thanks to the global initiation we have all been through, and we are now approaching graduation. Michael and his people have found a way to ensure that almost all of us on Earth will experience ascension in the next few years. I have a feeling that we will all get over it and reach the 1,000 years of joy and prosperity without too much trouble. In the meantime, there will be loud voices proclaiming that we are all sinners and have to bow down to some material object, or else we will suffer an eternal curse. That is nonsense. Be happy. Listen to your inner voice, and it will not lead you astray. We are all integral parts of each other, but we are individualized divinity in that context. Roman Christmas. Celebrating Saturnalia by Paddy Wellington. When it comes to feasting and debauchery, no one beats the people of ancient Rome. Around the time of the winter solstice, each year they celebrated the festival of Saturnalia. As the name suggests, this was a festival in honor of the agricultural god Saturn. This week-long festival began around 17th December, so it ended on the day of the solstice. Fertility rituals were performed in the temple of Saturn, including sacrifices. In addition to the great public rites, many private citizens held ceremonies in honor of Saturn at home. One of the highlights of Saturnalia was the traditional role reversal, particularly between a master and his slave. Everyone could wear the red freedman's hat, and the slaves were free to be as flippant as they wished with their masters. However, despite the appearance of a reversal of the social order, in reality there were some fairly strict limits. A master could serve dinner to his slaves, but it was their slaves who prepared it. This kept Roman society in order, but allowed everyone to have a good time. Beginning the week before the winter solstice and continuing for a full month, Saturnalia was an hedonistic time, when food and drink were plentiful and the normal Roman social order was turned upside down. For a month, slaves became masters. Peasants were in charge of the city. Businesses and schools were closed so that everyone could join in the fun. Citizens decorated their living rooms with branches of greenery and even hung little tin ornaments on bushes and trees, just like a Christmas tree. A band of revelers wandered the streets singing and having fun, a sort of mischievous precursors of the Christmas caroling tradition of today. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.